The whisper cut through the ballroom like a knife. She shouldn't be here. And just like that, every conversation stopped. Every glass froze midair. Every eye turned toward the woman standing alone at the entrance. But to understand why those 4 words carried so much weight, we need to go back 25 years to a small town where a little girl learned that some doors were never meant to open for people like her. Maya Lin was 7 years old when she first understood what it meant to be invisible. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and her mother had taken her along to deliver dry cleaning to the big houses on the hill. The Thornwood Country Club sat at the very top, its white columns gleaming in the afternoon sun like something from a movie. Maya remembered tugging at her mother's hand, pointing at the beautiful building, asking if they could go inside and see. Her mother's face changed in that moment. It was a look Maya would never forget. Part sadness, part something harder. "That place is not for us," her mother said quietly. "We go around the back." They walked past the grand entrance, with its polished doors and flower arrangements. They walked past the windows, where Maya could see women in pretty dresses, laughing over tiny sandwiches. They walked all the way around to a gray metal door at the back of the building. Her mother knocked twice, and waited. When a man in a white uniform finally opened it, he didn't say hello. He just pointed to where they should leave the clothes. Maya watched her mother bow her head slightly, the way she always did when dealing with these customers. She watched her mother count the money carefully, knowing that any mistake would come out of her own pocket. She watched her mother say thank you 3 times before backing away from that door. On the walk home, Maya asked why they couldn't use the front door like everyone else. Her mother squeezed her hand and said something in their native language. It meant, "Someday things will be different." But her voice didn't sound like she believed it. The Lin family had come to America with 2 suitcases and a dream. Maya's father worked at a restaurant, washing dishes from 5 in the morning until midnight. Her mother ran a small dry cleaning shop that barely made enough to cover rent. They lived in a tiny apartment above the shop, where the smell of cleaning chemicals seeped through the floorboards and made Maya's eyes water at night. School was not a safe place either. Maya was the only Asian kid in her class. And children can be cruel, in ways that leave scars you cannot see. They made fun of her lunches, the rice and vegetables her mother packed with such care each morning. They pulled at the corners of their eyes, when teachers weren't looking. They asked her why she talked funny, even though she was born in the same hospital as them. But the worst part was not the teasing. The worst part was being looked through, as if she simply did not exist. Birthday parties happened without invitations reaching her desk. Group projects formed around her like water flowing past a stone. She learned to eat lunch in the library, pretending she preferred books to people. Her parents worked too hard to notice how lonely their daughter had become. They left before she woke up and came home after she was supposed to be asleep. Maya would lie in bed listening to their tired voices downstairs, talking about bills and customers and the car that needed fixing again. She promised herself she would never make their lives harder by complaining, so she swallowed her sadness and let it sit somewhere deep in her chest. The one bright spot in Maya's life was her teacher, Mrs. Cooper. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes who seemed to actually see Maya when she looked at her. Mrs. Cooper noticed that Maya finished her work before everyone else. She noticed that Maya read books meant for kids twice her age. She started bringing Maya extra assignments, harder problems, books that made her think. "You have a gift," Mrs. Cooper told her one afternoon. "Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." Those words planted a seed that would take years to grow. Maya started to wonder if maybe her mother was wrong. Maybe someday she could walk through front doors. Maybe someday people would have to see her whether they wanted to or not. High school was both better and worse. Better because Maya had learned how to make herself small enough that bullies lost interest. Worse, because she started to understand exactly how the world saw her family. She heard the whispers about those people taking jobs and changing the neighborhood. She saw how store owners watched her mother a little too closely whenever she went shopping. She felt the weight of being forever foreign in the only country she had ever known. But Maya had a secret. Every night, after her homework was done, and her parents thought she was sleeping, she would sneak down to the dry cleaning shop and use the old computer her father had bought at a garage sale. She taught herself to code by watching free videos online. She built simple websites, then complicated ones. She discovered that in the world of technology, nobody could see her face or hear her accent. They could only see her work. And her work was exceptional. When it came time to think about college, Maya made an appointment with her guidance counselor. She had printed out information about scholarships and financial aid. She had researched programs and requirements. She walked into that office with hope in her heart for the first time in years. The counselor, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, barely looked at the papers Maya had brought. She glanced at Maya's file, at her address, at her parents' occupations. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that isn't really a smile at all. "Sweetie," she said, "let's be realistic. Girls like you should think about community college, maybe a trade school. These big universities, they're just not meant for everyone." Maya felt something crack inside her. All those years of being invisible, of being looked through, of being told that certain doors were not for people like her, it all pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of crying, instead of giving up, Maya felt a fire start to burn. It began small, just a spark of anger in her belly. But by the time she walked out of that office, it had grown into something much bigger. Something that would fuel her for the next 10 years. She applied to Yale University that night. She used the library computer because she didn't want anyone to know. She wrote her essay about the back door of the country club, about her mother's bowed head, about all the times she had been made to feel like she didn't belong. She wrote about the fire inside her that refused to go out. When the acceptance letter came 3 months later, Maya sat on her bed and cried for an hour. Then, she showed her mother, who had worked her whole life for this moment, who had never once complained about back doors and counting money and being invisible. Her mother held that letter like it was made of gold and whispered, "You go. You show them all." Maya left for college with one suitcase and her mother's words burning in her heart. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to start a journey that would bring her back to that country club in ways nobody could have imagined. The little girl who was told to use the back door was about to learn just how loud silence could be when she finally walked through the front. Yale University was nothing like Maya had imagined. It was harder. It was lonelier. And it was the best thing that ever happened to her. The first week, she sat in her dorm room and almost called her mother to say she was coming home. The other students seemed to speak a different language. They talked about summer houses and family connections and trips to Europe like these things were normal. Maya had never been on an airplane in her life, but giving up was not something Maya knew how to do. She studied harder than anyone else. She stayed in the library until security kicked her out. She took extra classes and joined every club that would help her learn more about technology and business. While other students went to parties, Maya was building apps in her tiny dorm room. While they slept in on weekends, she was already awake, coding, and dreaming. Her professors started to notice. One of them, a woman named Dr. Helen Wright, pulled Maya aside after class one day. She told Maya that she had never seen a student with so much hunger. Not hunger for grades or praise, but hunger to prove something. Dr. Wright became Maya's mentor, guiding her through the complicated world of tech startups and venture capital. She introduced Maya to people who could open doors. Real doors. Not the back ones. By the time Maya graduated, she had already started her first company. It failed within a year. Her second company lasted 18 months before running out of money. Most people would have quit. Most people would have taken a safe job at some big corporation and called it a life. But Maya remembered her mother's hands, cracked from chemicals. She remembered the gray metal door at the back of the country club. She remembered every single person who had told her she didn't belong. Her third company was different. Maya had learned from her mistakes. She had learned that failure was just another word for education. This time, she built something that solved a real problem. Her app helped small business owners manage their shops more easily. It helped people like her parents, who worked 16-hour days and had no time to learn complicated computer systems. The app was simple, beautiful, and it worked. Within 2 years, Maya's company had grown from her apartment to a real office with 50 employees. Within 5 years, she had offices in 3 countries. Magazine reporters started calling. Television shows wanted interviews. The little girl who ate lunch alone in the library was now being called one of the most innovative minds in technology. But success came with a price. Maya worked so hard that she forgot to live. She forgot to visit home. She forgot to call her mother as often as she should have. There was always another meeting, another investor, another problem to solve. She told herself she was doing it all for her family. She told herself that once the company was stable, she would slow down. She told herself there would be time. There wasn't. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. Maya was in the middle of a presentation to investors when her assistant walked in with a look on her face that stopped Maya mid-sentence. Her mother had collapsed at the dry cleaning shop. By the time Maya's plane landed, her mother was in the hospital, connected to machines that beeped and hummed in the quiet room. Maya sat beside her mother's bed for 3 days. She held the same hands that had once held hers outside the country club. Those hands were older now, more fragile, but still marked by years of hard work. Maya talked to her mother about everything she had never had time to say. She apologized for missing birthdays. She apologized for being too busy. She apologized for not being there when it mattered most. Her mother passed away on a Sunday morning, just as the sun was coming up. Her last words to Maya were the same words she had spoken all those years ago. "You showed them," she whispered. "You showed them all." The funeral was small. Maya's father stood beside her, looking like a man who had lost half of himself. The dry cleaning shop closed its doors forever. Maya tried to go back to work, but something had changed inside her. The fire that had driven her for so long now felt different. It was still there, but it burned for new reasons. She threw herself into the company with even more intensity. Maybe she was running from grief. Maybe she was trying to honor her mother's memory. Either way, the results were undeniable. 2 years after her mother's death, Maya's company went public. The little startup that began in an apartment was now worth billions of dollars. Maya Lin, the girl who had been told to be realistic, was now one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America. The day her company went public, Maya did something she had never done before. She flew back to her hometown. She walked through the streets where she had grown up, past the closed dry cleaning shop, past her old school, past all the places that held memories of a different life. She ended up standing outside the Thornwood Country Club, staring at those same white columns that had seemed so unreachable when she was 7 years old. The invitation arrived 3 weeks later. Maya was in her office in San Francisco when her assistant brought in the mail. Most of it was the usual stuff: business proposals, interview requests, charity donation forms. But one envelope stood out. It was thick, cream-colored paper with fancy writing. The return address made Maya's heart stop for just a moment. She opened it slowly, not sure what to expect. Inside was an invitation to their annual Legacy Gala. The letter explained that the club was honoring distinguished community members who had brought pride to the region. They wanted Maya to be their guest of honor. They wanted to celebrate her success. Maya read the invitation 3 times. She thought about her mother walking around to the back door. She thought about the man in the white uniform who pointed without speaking. She thought about every whisper, every sideways glance, every moment she had been made to feel like she didn't belong in their world. Her first instinct was to throw the invitation in the trash. Why should she give them the satisfaction? Why should she show up to a place that had treated her family like they were less than human? She could simply ignore it, pretend it never arrived. She was Maya Lin now. She didn't need their approval or their recognition. But as she held the invitation over the trash can, something stopped her. She thought about all the little girls who were still being told to use back doors. She thought about all the mothers still bowing their heads and saying thank you too many times. She thought about what it would mean for those people to see someone like her walk through the front entrance of a place that had tried so hard to keep them out. Maya picked up a pen and checked the box marked attending. She wrote her name in careful letters, the same name that had once been whispered with scorn, the same name that was now on magazine covers and news reports. Then she sealed the envelope and set it aside to be mailed. The gala was in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, until she would return to the place that had taught her what it meant to be invisible. 3 weeks, until she would walk through those polished front doors. 3 weeks until the people who had looked through her would have no choice but to see her standing right in front of them. Maya didn't know exactly what she would say or do when she got there. But she knew one thing for certain. This time, she would not be using the back door. The night of the gala arrived faster than Maya expected. She stood in her hotel room, looking at herself in the mirror, trying to recognize the woman staring back. Her dress was simple but elegant, black silk that moved like water when she walked. No flashy jewelry, no designer logos screaming for attention. She wanted them to see her, not her money. She wanted them to remember the girl they had ignored, not the billionaire they now wanted to celebrate. Her hands were shaking as she applied her lipstick. Maya Lin had given speeches to thousands of people. She had negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She had faced down investors who tried to tell her she was too young, too inexperienced, too female to succeed. None of that had made her hands shake like this. This was different. This was personal. The car pulled up to the Thornwood Country Club at exactly 7 in the evening. Maya sat in the back seat for a long moment, looking at those white columns glowing in the evening light. The building looked exactly the same as it had 25 years ago. The same polished windows, the same flower arrangements by the entrance, the same feeling of being somewhere she was not supposed to be. She thought about her mother. What would she say if she could see Maya now? Would she be proud? Would she be worried? Would she tell Maya to turn around and go home? That some battles weren't worth fighting? Maya closed her eyes and tried to feel her mother's presence. All she felt was the empty space where her mother used to be. The driver opened her door. Maya took a deep breath and stepped out onto the gravel driveway. The sound of her heels was loud in the quiet evening air. Each step toward the entrance felt like a small victory. She was not walking around to the back. She was not carrying dry cleaning. She was walking straight toward the front door like she had every right to be there. Because she did. The doorman looked at her invitation, then looked at her face. She saw the moment of confusion in his eyes. He had probably been expecting someone different. Someone who looked like she belonged at a place like this. Maya held his gaze until he looked away and opened the door with a small bow. The ballroom was even more beautiful than Maya had imagined. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. White tablecloths covered round tables, arranged around a dance floor. A string quartet played soft music in the corner. Waiters in black uniforms moved through the crowd, carrying silver trays of champagne and tiny appetizers. And the people. So many people in expensive clothes and perfect hair. Women with diamonds around their necks. Men with watches that cost more than her parents had made in a year. They all seemed to know each other. Greeting friends with air kisses and firm handshakes. They moved through the room with the easy confidence of people who had never been told they didn't belong anywhere. Maya stood at the entrance, taking it all in. For a moment, she felt like that 7-year-old girl again, the one who had pressed her face against the window, watching the pretty ladies eat tiny sandwiches, the one who had asked her mother why they couldn't use the front door, the one who had learned too young that the world was divided into people who belonged and people who didn't. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and stepped into the ballroom. The reaction was immediate. It started with the people closest to the entrance. Their conversations faltered. Their smiles froze. Their eyes widened just slightly. The way people's eyes do when they see something unexpected. Then, the ripples spread outward through the room, person by person, table by table. The buzz of conversation grew quieter. Maya kept walking. She had learned long ago that the best way to handle stares was to pretend they didn't exist. She moved through the crowd like she owned the place. In a way, she could have. She could have bought this entire club and everyone in it without making a dent in her bank account. But that wasn't why she was here. She made it halfway across the room before she heard it. She shouldn't be here. The whisper came from somewhere to her left. It was loud enough to carry, but quiet enough to pretend it hadn't been said. Maya knew that kind of whisper. She had heard it her entire childhood. The whisper that was meant to be heard. The whisper that was designed to wound while giving the speaker a way to deny any wrongdoing. She stopped walking. The room, which had already grown quiet, fell completely silent. The string quartet kept playing for a few more notes before trailing off into nothing. Even the waiters stopped moving. Everyone stood frozen, watching to see what would happen next. Maya turned toward the direction of the whisper. She found herself looking at a woman about her mother's age. Blonde hair styled perfectly, pearls around her neck, a champagne glass clutched in her manicured hand. The woman's face had gone pale, probably realizing that her whisper had been louder than intended, but she didn't apologize. She didn't look away. She held Maya's gaze with the same expression Maya had seen 1,000 times growing up. The expression that said, "You don't belong here." The expression that said, "We are not the same." The expression that said, "Some doors will never open for people like you." Maya recognized her. Not personally, but she recognized the type. This was a woman who had probably never been told no in her entire life. A woman who had inherited her place in this room, not earned it. A woman who saw Maya not as a self-made billionaire or a tech pioneer or a human being with her own story. She saw Maya as an intruder. Someone who had snuck in through a door that should have remained closed. The silence stretched on. People were barely breathing. Maya could feel hundreds of eyes on her, waiting to see how she would react. Would she cry? Would she leave? Would she cause a scene? They were probably already composing the stories they would tell tomorrow. Did you hear what happened at the gala? That Chinese woman showed up and made such a fuss. But Maya did none of those things. Instead, she did something that surprised everyone in that room, including herself. She smiled. Not a fake smile. Not a polite smile. A real smile that reached her eyes and transformed her entire face. Because standing there, in the middle of that silent ballroom, surrounded by people who thought she didn't belong, Maya realized something important. She had already won. These people, with their diamonds and their pearls and their whispers, they had nothing she wanted. Their approval meant nothing. Their acceptance meant nothing. She hadn't come here to prove she was one of them. She had come here to show them that their opinions had never mattered. Not when she was 7 years old, and not now. The woman with the pearls looked confused by Maya's smile. She had expected shame, or anger, or retreat. She had not expected this quiet, powerful confidence. For the first time, she looked uncertain. She took a small step backward. Maya began walking again. But not toward the exit. Toward the woman. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with each step. The crowd parted in front of her, like the sea in those old Bible stories. Nobody wanted to be in her path. When she reached the woman, Maya stopped. They stood face to face, close enough to speak without being overheard. But Maya didn't lower her voice. She wanted everyone to hear what she had to say. The woman's champagne glass trembled slightly in her hand. Up close, Maya could see the fear hiding behind her proud expression. It was the fear of someone who has just realized they might have made a terrible mistake. Maya looked at her for a long moment. Then, she spoke. "You're right," Maya said. Her voice was calm and steady. It carried across the silent ballroom like a stone dropping into still water. The woman with the pearls blinked in surprise. This was not what she had expected. She had expected anger, or tears, or a hasty exit. She had expected Maya to prove every assumption she had ever made about people like her. Instead, Maya was agreeing with her. The woman's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Maya continued, her voice never wavering. I shouldn't be here tonight. Someone else should be standing in this spot. Someone who deserved this moment far more than I ever will. She reached into her small black clutch and pulled out a photograph. It was old and worn at the edges. The colors faded from years of being carried in wallets and tucked into mirror frames. Maya held it up so everyone nearby could see. The photograph showed a young woman standing outside this very building. She wore a simple work uniform, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her hands were red and rough, even in the faded image. She was holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. Both of them were looking at the camera with tired smiles. This is my mother, Maya said. This picture was taken 25 years ago, right outside those doors. She had just finished delivering dry cleaning to this club. 50 pounds of fancy dresses and expensive suits carried on her back because we couldn't afford a car. She made that delivery every Tuesday for 12 years. The room remained absolutely silent. Even the woman with the pearls seemed frozen in place, her champagne glass still trembling in her hand. My mother came to this country with nothing, Maya continued. She didn't speak the language. She didn't know anyone. She worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, for 20 years. Her hands were always cracked and bleeding from the chemicals. She never complained. Not once. She just kept working, kept saving, kept believing that if she sacrificed enough, her daughter might have a better life. Maya's voice cracked slightly on the word daughter. She paused, taking a breath to steady herself. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger than before. Every Tuesday, my mother walked past these beautiful front doors. She saw women like you walking in and out, laughing, enjoying yourselves. And every Tuesday, she walked around to the back, to the service entrance. Because that was the door for people like us. She turned slowly, addressing not just the woman with the pearls, but everyone in the room. Every person who had ever looked through her. Every person who had ever whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. Every person who had ever made her feel like she was less than human. Do you know what my mother told me after those deliveries? She said. Someday, things will be different. She believed it with her whole heart. She believed that if she worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, her daughter might one day walk through front doors. Not service entrances. Not back alleys. Front doors. Maya looked down at the photograph in her hands. Her mother's face smiled up at her, frozen in time. Forever young. Forever hopeful. My mother died 3 years ago. She never got to see this moment. She never got to walk through these doors herself. She spent her entire life being invisible to people like you, being looked through, being treated like she was somehow less deserving of basic human respect. Her eyes found the woman with the pearls again. The woman had gone very pale. Her champagne glass was shaking so badly now that liquid was spilling over the rim onto her perfectly manicured fingers. You whispered that I shouldn't be here, Maya said softly. And you're right. My mother should be here. She earned this moment, with every delivery she made, with every time she bowed her head and said thank you to people who couldn't even bother to learn her name, with every night she came home exhausted and still helped me with my homework, because she wanted me to have opportunities she never had. Tears were forming in Maya's eyes now, but she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall. She had spent too many years hiding her emotions, making herself small, pretending that the cruelty of others didn't affect her. Not tonight. But my mother can't be here. So I came in her place. Not because I want your approval. Not because I need your acceptance. I came because I wanted you to see something. I wanted you to see what happens when you underestimate people. When you look through them. When you decide they don't matter because of where they come from or what they look like. She held up the photograph one more time, turning in a slow circle so everyone could see. This woman. This invisible woman who used your back door for 12 years. She raised a daughter. And that daughter is standing in front of you right now. Not because of your help, because of your doubt. Every time someone told me I didn't belong, I worked harder. Every door that closed in my face made me more determined to build my own doors. Every whisper like the one I heard tonight reminded me why I could never give up. Maya carefully put the photograph back in her clutch. When she looked up again, her tears had stopped. Her eyes were clear and focused. I didn't come here to make you feel guilty. Guilt is useless unless it leads to change. I didn't come here to embarrass you or to cause a scene. I came here because I made a promise to my mother. I promised her that someday, things would be different. That someday, people like us would walk through front doors without anyone questioning whether we belonged. She looked around the room one final time, at the crystal chandeliers and the white tablecloths and the people in their expensive clothes, at the world that had seemed so unreachable when she was a little girl pressing her face against the window. Things are different now. Not because the world changed, because people like my mother changed it. One sacrifice at a time. One generation at a time. One daughter at a time. And I am going to make sure that change continues. I am going to make sure that no little girl ever has to ask her mother why they can't use the front door. The woman with the pearls was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks, leaving trails through her expensive makeup. She opened her mouth to speak, perhaps to apologize, perhaps to defend herself, but no words came out. Maya wasn't finished. She reached into her clutch once more and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it up so everyone could see the official letterhead and the large numbers printed on the front. "This is why I really came tonight," she said. "Not for revenge. Not for recognition. For something much more important." She unfolded the paper and held it out toward the silent crowd. "This is the beginning of a promise I'm making. A promise to my mother and to every person who has ever been made to feel invisible. A promise that took me 25 years to be able to keep." The crowd leaned forward slightly, trying to see what was on the paper. The woman with the pearls wiped her eyes, her expression shifting from shame to confusion to something that looked almost like curiosity. Maya smiled. It was the same smile she had given earlier. The smile of someone who has already won. The smile of someone who knows exactly what she's about to do and why it matters. "Let me tell you about the building next door," she said. "The one that used to be a dry cleaning shop. The one where my mother worked herself to exhaustion for 20 years. I bought it last month, and what I'm planning to do with it is going to change everything." The room held its breath as Maya unfolded the paper completely. She could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on her. The chandeliers seemed to glow brighter. The silence seemed to grow deeper. This was the moment she had been building toward for 25 years. "The dry cleaning shop where my mother worked closed down after she died," Maya began. "My father couldn't run it without her. He didn't want to. Every corner of that building reminded him of the woman he had loved for 40 years. So he locked the door and walked away." She paused, letting the words settle over the crowd like falling snow. "I drove past that building every time I came home to visit. I watched it fall apart year after year. The paint peeling, the windows getting dusty, the sign with my mother's name fading in the sun. It broke my heart every single time. That building was my mother's dream. It was proof that she existed, that she mattered, that she had built something with her own 2 hands." Maya looked down at the paper in her hands. When she looked up again, there were fresh tears in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "Last month, I bought that building. I bought the land it sits on, and I bought every single property on that block. In total, I now own the entire street where my mother spent the best years of her life. A murmur ran through the crowd. People exchanged glances, trying to understand where this was going. The woman with the pearls was still crying silently, her champagne glass now resting forgotten on a nearby table. I could have torn it all down, Maya continued. I could have built luxury apartments or fancy restaurants or some tech campus with my name on it. That's what everyone expected me to do. That's what makes business sense. But I didn't become successful by doing what everyone expected. She smiled. And this time, it was a softer smile. A smile filled with love and memory and purpose. Instead, I'm building something my mother would have wanted. Something that will help people like her. People who work 2 jobs and still can't afford childcare. People whose kids eat lunch alone because they're too different. People who are told every single day that certain doors will never open for them. Maya held up the paper so everyone could see it clearly. It was an official document, with blueprints and numbers and legal language. But at the top, in elegant letters, was a name. The Lin Family Community Center and Scholarship Fund. This center will offer free job training for immigrants and refugees. It will have affordable childcare so parents don't have to choose between working and raising their children. It will have after-school programs for kids who need a safe place to learn and grow. And every single year, it will give full scholarships to 10 first-generation college students. Kids like I was. Kids who have been told to be realistic. Kids who have been told that dreams are not for people like them. The murmur in the crowd grew louder. Maya could see people whispering to each other, their expressions shifting from curiosity to something that looked almost like respect. The center will be built on the exact spot where my mother worked. The front entrance will face this country club. Every person who walks through those doors will be able to look up at this beautiful building on the hill, and they will know that they belong, that their dreams matter, that no door is closed to them forever. Maya reached into her clutch one final time. She pulled out a check, already signed, already filled out. She walked toward the nearest table, where the club president sat with his wife, the woman with the pearls. The woman who had whispered those 4 words that started everything. Maya placed the check on the table in front of them. $1 million. Donated to the scholarship fund in her mother's name. I'm not asking for your money, Maya said, looking directly at the woman. I have enough of my own. I'm not asking for your approval. I stopped needing that a long time ago. I'm giving you an opportunity. An opportunity to be part of something that actually matters. An opportunity to help build the kind of world my mother believed in. The woman with the pearls looked at the check, then looked at Maya. Her makeup was ruined from crying. Her perfect hair had fallen out of place. She looked nothing like the confident, judgmental woman who had whispered just minutes ago. She looked small and uncertain and very, very human. I'm sorry, the woman whispered. Her voice was barely audible, but in the silence of the room, everyone heard it. I'm so sorry. Maya nodded slowly. She didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. She didn't say she forgave her, because forgiveness takes time. But she acknowledged the apology with a simple nod that said she had heard it. Sorry is a start, Maya said quietly. But it's just the beginning. What matters is what you do next. What we all do next. Some, GV, 117.7. She turned to address the entire room one last time. Every face was turned toward her now. Some people were crying. Some looked ashamed. Some looked inspired. All of them were listening. I used to hate this place, Maya admitted. I used to dream about the day I could walk through these doors and show everyone how wrong they were about me. I thought that would feel like victory. I thought that would give me peace. She shook her head slowly. I was wrong. Revenge doesn't bring peace. Proving people wrong doesn't fill the empty spaces inside you. The only thing that brings peace is purpose. The only thing that matters is what you build with the time you have. Maya picked up the photograph of her mother one more time. She held it against her heart. My mother never walked through these front doors. She never got to see me become successful. She never got to know that her sacrifices meant something. But she gave me something more valuable than any of that. She gave me the belief that things could be different. That every generation could open doors for the next. That love and sacrifice and hard work could change the world. She kissed the photograph gently before putting it back in her clutch. I'm going to spend the rest of my life keeping that belief alive. Not just for myself. For every invisible mother working 2 jobs. For every lonely kid eating lunch in the library. For every dreamer who has been told to be realistic. Maya began walking toward the exit. But this time, the crowd didn't just part for her. People reached out to touch her arm, to thank her, to whisper words of support. The woman with the pearls stood up and called out after her. Wait, please. How can we help? What can we do? Maya stopped at the door and turned around one final time. The ballroom was transformed. The stiff, judgmental atmosphere had melted into something warmer. Something more human. Open your doors, Maya said simply. All of them. Not just for people who look like you or talk like you or come from the same places you do. Open them for everyone. That's how you help. That's how we all help. She pushed open the front door and stepped out into the cool night air. The stars were bright overhead. The same stars her mother used to look at after long days at the shop. The same stars that had witnessed every tear, every struggle, every small victory. Maya walked to her car without looking back. She had said everything she needed to say. The rest was up to them. As she drove away, she passed the old dry cleaning shop. It was dark and empty now. But soon, it would be filled with light and laughter and possibility. Soon it would become exactly what her mother had always believed in. A front door that was open to everyone. Things were different now. Not just for Maya. For every little girl who would never have to ask why she couldn't use the front door. Her mother had been right all along. Someday had finally arrived.